Morning, everybody. I'm Norm Flora, a member of All Saints Parish, Episcopal Parish here in Calvert County. And I am being accompanied today by Joe Klausner.
Good morning, everybody.
Our chief chef today. Joe and I are good friends. And just for the record, I'd like to state he's part of my COVID family. We get together pretty much weekly for dinner and do things together. And so that's why we're not masked up. So no kissing and hugging, but just, no mask. So today we're gonna do a recipe that was done in my wife's grandmother's family. Back in the 70s, it was real popular, known as chicken French. And it's actually referred to as chicken francaise in the Italian culture, but it's chicken French is what we always called it. It's a very easy entree that you can cook, but it's one of those things when it's done and you got it on the plate, it seems like it's really special. Now, basically what we're going to do is cut the chicken breast, scallopini them real thin by banging them down, and then fry them in a fryer, and then add a simple lemon butter sauce to the top of it. It's really easy. It's one that I want to, for the record, I want to note that Grandma D, her name was Delia Corletta, what an Italian name, right? Delia Corletta. Her maiden name was Frito. Delia Frito. And they were all about this tall. So in their houses, they paid these carpenters to come in and have their kitchen counters lower because they were so short. And then I would go to work on, I had to bend over like this to work on their counters. My back was killing me, but it was always a joy to work with them. When I first joined the family, they were like, who is this big, tall Norwegian kid trying to cook with the old ladies, And, but after a while, I gained their respect. It took a little while though. I gained their respect, and Grandma D could never remember my name. She always called me Ron. It was the right letters. They were just in a different order. You know what I mean? But she lived to be 99, and she was a character. She really was a character. But in memory of her, today we're going to prepare chicken French. The first thing I want to talk about are these chicken breasts. In the old days, I don't think chicken breasts were this big. They've done something. I think the chickens are weightlifting or something like that. They're huge. I mean, they're gigantic. So in the old days, we used to take a whole chicken breast and just pound it down. Pounding these breasts is really important. It really tenderizes the breast, and it just makes for the perfect fillet that you're going to fry up with the chicken breast. But to remedy this problem of this massive chicken breast, I come up with my own technique, and maybe some of you have too. I've just taught myself how to cut cutlets. I'm going to show you how I do it. So you got the breast longwise, and on the bias, I cut it and cut down to the end of the breast, and I create this little cutlet, a little fillet. See it? And I get probably 3 out of each breast. There's my second one, and then I'll go for a third one. And so what we're looking at is probably about a 1/2 inch cutlet. And I trim them up just to make them nice. So now what we have are these little cutlets or little breasts, okay? This is probably one of the better ones. I'm gonna come a little closer just to show you. See that cutlet? It's really nice, easy to handle. And when we pound this down with the mallet, it's going to become beautiful. It's just going to become nice and thin. So there's the mallet we use. It's a big metal mallet. You could use anything. You could use a fry pan or something. I just happen to have one of these mallets. So, okay. And the trick to this mallet is, as my sous chef Joe Klausner has here, when you're pounding chicken down, I highly recommend don't pound it down in the open. I've learned that getting raw chicken all over the place is probably not a good idea because of, salmonella and stuff like that. So we put it in a Ziploc, 1 gallon Ziploc bag. See that? It's a 1 gallon Ziploc bag, but do not zip it shut because, as you know, if you try to pound something that's shut, it's going to pop. and you don't want that. So you leave the one end open. Now we're gonna go back to the marble on the counter. It's gonna be a little hard to show, but we'll show it to you. So the chicken breast is flat in the bag. We're gonna go down to the marble. We set it flat on the marble, and Joe, the sous chef, is gonna pound it. And when I say pound it, it's like you're smacking it, you know? And so maybe a little more over in there. Good, good, good. Now, I will say this, you can pound it as thin as you like, but just the pounding in itself is going to tenderize it. And I'm going to bring it over. You remember what that breast looked like, right? Now I'm going to bring it over and show it to you. And as you can tell, see that? It's really thin and beautiful. Almost, you can almost see through it. Actually, I can see through it here. You want to get it probably around a 1/4 of an inch, okay? And that's really what makes this dish, that nice, tender, thin chicken cutlet. So, okay?
We do the rest of it as well.
So I'm going to send these over to my sous chef. He's going to pound the rest. I got 2 that are done already. And I'm going to go to the next stage. And this next stage used to baffle me. I don't know why, but so when I dredge things like a soft shell crab or something like that, I always dredged it in the egg and then put it in the flour. Or if I dredged, what is it called, eggplant, I dredged it in the egg and then put it in the flour. That sort of made sense because you wanted the flour to stick. No, no, no. Grandma D would go crazy if I did that. And it seems to make a difference in the dish. So when you dredge the chicken, you want to dredge it in the flour, okay? And I'm going to grab my tongs real quick. You want to make sure that the flour covers it. You're going to get this really beautiful dry piece of floured chicken, as you can see here. See that? And then you drop it into the egg, okay? And the thing with the egg is, because it's the other way around, you want to make sure that the egg has covered everything. You don't want a dry, floury chicken breast, you know? And as this one, you can see, it's really covered with, and you know, the flour doesn't come off. It works. It works. I'm always amazed. Okay. So I'm going to dredge a couple more of those. I'm going to light my flame here, my primitive flame. And we're going to let our oil heat up. I would probably heat the oil to like a medium hot, not extremely hot, but a medium hot. And the thing about these cutlets, with them being so thin and the chicken being tender and fresh, that's another thing I want to mention real quick. I like to bring my meats to just under room temperature. So I like to let my meat sit out a little bit, not overnight or anything like that. But I don't like to take them cold from the fridge. One is because if I'm making this stuff, I'm usually making lots of it for a lot of people, and it's really hard on the hands when the meat's really cold. The other is room temperature seems to be, if everything is room temperature, it just seems to work. It works out really well that way. So we're going to let our oil come up. Joe, did you pound those? No. Joe's going to pound a couple more. I'm going to dredge one more in the flour. Now, if you look at the recipe, let's talk about the flour real quick. The flour could just be just flour if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. I like to put a little parsley in there, or pepper, a little bit of salt, and sometimes paprika. I do things like that. But in the recipe, it tells you the things I do by default. But you can do anything you want there. I use an all-purpose flour. It's not real thin. I like to sift the flour up to make sure that there's no lumps in it. And then it just works well that way. So I'm going to grab this piece of chicken. And we're going to put it in the fry pan.
So you don't dredge it again?
No, don't dredge it again. Actually, just right from there to the fryer. So another thing I wanted to mention is the fry pan. On the recipe, I say use vegetable oil. vegetable oil's fine. You know, like Wesson oil or something like that. I wouldn't use olive oil because olive oil is a high smoke point, and you probably aren't going to get it as hot as you want to get it before it starts smoking. Another thing you can use is peanut oil. I would treat the peanut oil like vegetable oil. Peanut oil can go pretty high though, or you could use a combination of both. If I'm not making a whole lot of it, I use peanut oil. Peanut oil is kind of expensive. If I'm making a lot of it, like for a party or something like that, I use a vegetable oil. It works just as good. So, but what we want is a nice hot oil, just under deep frying kind of thing, you know, but a medium high, you know, that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm going to place my first chicken cutlet in the pan, and it starts to fry up. It gets a little bubbly, so, you know, because the egg's on the outside, and I think that's part of it. It's a texture thing that Grandma D liked. And she was great. Grandma D was great. It took me a little while, but after a while, she was just, that's my Ron. I think it became a joke and she knew it, and you know. I get Ron, I get Monroe. They're all the right letters. It's just the wrong name. So they're in the pan, and here's the deal. You want to stay on top of these because I'm looking for a pair of tongs. I forgot another pair. Yeah, I do have another pair of tongs. You want to stay on top of these because you don't want them to overcook. So again, that pounding of the chicken is a big part of this because these things are going to cook up quick, really quick. And they get like a golden brown color, and they do really, really well. Joe's going to join the meeting. You got the numbers over there? Yeah. And he's going to have his camera on his phone, and maybe you can see some of the stuff in the fry pan. That's a cool idea. I like that idea. And like everybody else does, you know, I learned this from my mom. You do a dish, right? You do a dish, but you put a paper, you always got to have the paper towel to get the grease, right? I'm sorry I'm not in the picture. I had to get a paper towel. Okay. And as you can tell, this does not take long. It does not take long. You know, I learned, there's two things about, for me, my cooking that I realized lately that, I don't know if everybody has this, but I have a tactile sense for cooking. The touch, how the breast feels or how the meat feels. It tells me when it's done. And also, the other thing I've learned, I didn't realize this, but I listen to the oil. And the oil starts to sound different when the breast is done. I know that sounds crazy. I tried to explain this to my wife, but she doesn't. I mean, if it was a flute, she would know what you were talking about. Okay, and here we go. I don't know if you can see that. So these are two breasts. They're to a golden brown. They're tender. They're done. They're nice and firm. You know. Of course, you don't want to undercook chicken, but the big thing about breast is 9 times out of 10, if it comes out firm, tough and dry, it's usually because you overcooked it. So I always tell people, shoot for something just below what you're trying to get to, and then back off, and then take a look at it again. So there's the two breasts.
About how long?
Go ahead.
About how long did it take to cook one?
I would say it probably takes about 3 minutes.
Okay, that's what I would guess, but yeah. Okay.
Not long at all.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but chicken breasts are so big. They're gigantic, you know? Unless you were to find like a free range chicken, you can do that. I mean, you can find chicken breasts that are free range and organic and they're not so big. But if you're making chicken French for a big gigantic party or to freeze and put away, I like to freeze this and put it away and then reheat it later. It comes out really good that way. Then you're going to get these big breasts and you want to do that process of cutting cutlets and then pounding it down. My sister-in-law swears up and down, no, if you're going to cut the cutlet, that's thin enough. Okay. I'm not going to tell her, but I think it's too tough that way. Pounding it down, you know, really think about it. When you pound that chicken down, the proteins and everything just start to fall apart. And I can tell. I can just tell it's a better taste. So I'm going to fry one more piece. And this time we're going to let you see what's going on with Joe, the sous chef's camera.
If we can switch.
You guys see it?
Perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Looks good. Yeah.
All right, he's just the sous chef, okay? Another thing that my grandma Dee did with this is she used parsley, but she never used fresh parsley. For this, she always used fresh parsley in all kind of pasta dishes and stuff like that. But for this dish, she only used dried parsley. I don't know why. And she used a little bit of oregano, not much, but a little bit. And as you can tell, it gets pretty golden pretty quick. And, you know, it really doesn't take long at all. So what I like to do is I cut all my cutlets, I do all my pounding, I do all my dredging, and I do all my frying. And then right after we finish this piece that we're showing you here, we're going to do the very last step. I'm going to create the sauce. It's a very simple sauce. It's made with lemon, a little bit of garlic, lots of butter. And for all you out there, I don't think I put it in the recipe, but you can use a dry white wine in it too. A lot of people like to use the dry white wine. I choose not to use a wine, but that's fine. Yeah, a dry white wine goes very well in there. And as you can see, voila. So now we have our chicken franchise. Now I'm going to go on to make the sauce in a pan. What does that message say on my screen? Oh, nothing. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. So one other thing, when I'm frying like that, I don't like to use, I mean, I do fry in these. It's usually to sear things in my stainless steel. I usually do that kind of fry, that hard work kind of fry in a cast iron pan, like a Lodge pan or Le Crescent makes some good cast iron. But I just use a seasoned cast iron pan with about ½ inch of oil in it and then get it up to temperature. But when I make my sauce, of course, I make it in a saucepan, you know, or a fry pan. Okay, so we're going to bring our pan up to temperature. I'm going to grab lots of butter. Some people might be wondering if, couldn't you use a little olive oil instead of the butter? Well, first of all, you're going to have to use a lot of olive oil. And that is going to probably be a little tartar than you want. Butter makes really good sauces, I've learned. Render it down, get as much as the moisture out of it, and then that fat in the butter makes a really good sauce. So we're melting our butter now. And Joe, could you grab me one of those lemons? We're going to use fresh lemon. We're just going to use, I say fresh lemons. I don't know where lemons are coming from right now. Probably Mexico or something like that. And we're going to slice it up. So now in my pan, I've got my butter. I use an unsalted butter. I always use unsalted butter. You know why? You can add salt, you know. Very rarely will I use a salted butter. I like to have a salted butter on the table maybe, but other than that, I use unsalted butter. And I'm going to take the seeds out of this, so they're not a problem. Seeds out. And then I'm gonna use a big spoon. Okay. So in our pan, we got a bunch of butter. I like to put a nice teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of garlic. You know, the key with garlic is, I think we mentioned this before, is you don't want to cook garlic too dark because it gets bitter as it gets dark. So we've got our picture there. Lots of garlic. Man, that smells good. Butter and garlic, man. Okay. And then I put in some lemon juice, half of a lemon. Okay. And next I grab a little whisk. Now, I think in the recipe, I said some cornstarch. I take a little bit of corn. You can use flour if you want. Flour is fine. As you know, flour, you got to be real careful. You got to make a roux or something like that. But what I do is I take just a little bit of cornstarch and I add a little bit of water, maybe a half a cup of water or so. And then I add that to my sauce. And what that's going to do is thicken it up. I think my sous chef has the camera on it. You can see it's getting nice and thick. See that? Doesn't take much. Doesn't take much. See that sauce? Some people like to use flour instead of cornstarch. That's fine. I want to recommend. I don't see it. What you mean? I use a product called Wondra. The Wondra, it doesn't lump up. It's just a flour that they use, like I think some sodium bicarbonate in it or something. You sprinkle that in, and it works almost like a cornstarch. It's really nice. I'm going to grab a clean dish. And grab a fillet. Get a nice fillet. And then I'm going to ladle a little bit of put our sauce in. Okay, and I'm coming to show a presentation here. So there's some chicken French with the sauce. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Steam coming off of it. And I just want to show you, you grab me a fork out of that drawer there. I just want to show you that when you go to slice this, it cuts right. You don't even need a knife for it. It just, it cuts and wait a minute. It's really good. It's really good. Now, I want to mention about the sauce. You can do different things with the sauce. That's just the basic sauce. Some people use a little honey in it. Grandma D occasionally would do it with honey because the little kids like it sweeter, you know. But I will tell you, if you use a dry white wine in that sauce, really good. I'm allergic to wine, so I don't drink that. But if you use a dry white wine, really good. Some people use a little bit of a sherry. That's a very distinctive taste, so you might want to test that first. But basically, that's it. I do want to mention that what this goes really well with is either a risotto, plain rice, or a nice aglio e olio pasta, just some garlic and oil and fresh parsley. It's a simple yet eloquent dish, I think so. And we always enjoyed it and especially during Christmas, we always enjoyed it. Thank you, Giuseppe. Anybody have any questions? Is my hat straight?
It's
Is
perfect.
Is Martha out there today?
She is.
Oh, hello, Martha.
I am. I'm here. Had a
Good
little
to see
trouble
you.
getting on. That's why I was late.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure you're out there. How are you?
Thank you for doing. I'm good.
Good. It's good to hear your voice. So that is our chicken French. Pretty simple.
I have a question, Norm.
Yes, ma'am.
I have not had any luck with finding already prepared garlic, in a jar. Is there a brand that you particularly like?
I've tried a couple different brands. There are different brands, but you know what? Giant makes it their own brand. I don't know who makes it for them, but it's the Giant brand. You can buy it in a little one, or you can buy it in a big one, and they do a very good job because as their preservative, they use citric acid or like a lemon juice.
I see.
So I use a lot of it. That's why I buy it in a big jar like that. Some of my dishes I use very, very, I chop up my own garlic, but I've learned that this garlic here is really good. And as you can see, it's the Giant brand, minced garlic.
Okay, thanks.
It really works good. I use it in everything. I mean, I use it in
Your Wheaties?
my Wheaties, my Cheerio, and actually I will infuse it in my toothpaste. No, I used to say that about olive oil. It's like I use olive oil and everything. So, any questions about something that I might have left out, or I can do?
What would Grandma D use as side dishes? I know Italians tend to have many, but what were her favorites with this dish?
With this dish, her favorite was, and it's funny you should ask that. She really did have a favorite. Her favorite was rapini, or broccolini, they call it, I think. Broccoli rabe, some people call it. It's a small, thin broccoli. It's got a bitter taste to it, but you fry it with oil and garlic, of course. And then you put it as a side dish. She would add chilies to it, some chili peppers, and use it as a side. It was really good that way. So she would either do that, or sometimes she would just make broccoli that went with it. I don't know why I remember her using broccoli with this dish a whole lot. And of course, we always had a salad. Joe, well, that's what we need to do. We need to get Joe to do his Caesar salad. Joe makes the definitive Caesar salad. That's the only reason I hire him.
Joe, I'll call you for January.
Okay, Patty. I planted a seed, didn't I? So that is our chicken French.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It looks really good and fairly
That was
easy.
wonderful.
I know, and I've mentioned this every time. I think that's coming. It's right around the corner. We're going to be able to stand in our kitchen at church and do this together, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that because I'm getting sick and tired of him.
Well,
And the 2 dogs. I got the 2 dogs. I had to put my oldest dog down. Man, that's so hard. She was 14, but she had an enlarged heart. And she wanted to stick around, but she was just suffering too much. So
Oh, that's so
we
sad.
figure out back. We got a little bench. We sit there, so it's nice. And life goes on,
Right.
So
I think your sous chef deserves his own round of applause here.
good job. Yeah.